I'm here today with the one and only Brett from Pallbearer to talk about Mind Burns Alive. I have a hard time pronouncing that title. I don't know why. Maybe it's my mind that's burning alive. The album is out on May 17th on Nuclear Blast. First of all, thank you very much for taking the time to chat with me about the record. How is things going with you and this upcoming new release?
Things are going well. I'm very excited to finally get this thing out the metaphorical door, I guess. It's been a long time
Metaphorical and
coming.
physical, both.
Yes. Yeah, I guess so. Technically, it will go out some doors, hopefully in
Yeah,
people's hands as they're leaving the record store.
exactly, and hopefully not out of the windows as it goes into the door. Like you definitely want to avoid that. This record is not to be used as a frisbee. I can attest to that. It's a phenomenal album. You guys have been a band that for me have given me this Jekyll and Hyde outcome because every time I listen to one of your records, either I love the record or absolutely hate it. I've never felt indifferent, and I think that's a good thing.
No, that's like kind of our goal. I mean, there've definitely been certain records and certain songs where just like we know some people are going to hate them because people have very different ideas of what they want from us, I guess, or want us to be. And, sometimes we are exactly that, and sometimes we're very much not. It depends on the individual. But that's a good thing. It's better than being middling or boring.
Yeah, I mean, I think indifference is probably the worst thing about to for an artist. I mean, you want people to feel something about the art
Sure.
you created, either good or bad, but you want people to feel something. Now, when I was listening to this record, the first thing that I noticed was the album had this great design. It had a really interesting structure that allowed me to stay connected with the album from beginning to end. I never really felt lost in it. And that to me added to the overall playability of the record. I didn't feel like the album was overbearing. I didn't feel like the album was so out there that I didn't know what the hell was happening. It had a really cool design that got the most out of the individual songs. How much effort and work goes into creating an album structure, a track listing, considering the songs that you have available? Do you create some songs in order to help it, or it's all a little bit done differently?
Um, it's the final thing, other than I guess layout and uh album covers and whatever the design, the visual element. Yeah, sequencing is the final musical decision that we make in the album creation process. Like, um, I could see there being, we've never done just like a true like interim track, like transition track. I could see doing that in the future, but yeah, we put a lot of work into um deciding the track sequencing. To me, that's like it can make or break an album. Even if the songs are individually exactly the same, for the sake of the album itself, it's very important to us to create a sort of a narrative flow to the order of the songs. I think that's just as important as arranging a song itself, because that's what it's like making a song, that has these peaks and valleys of intensity or um, you know, volume. And I think the an album should just the sequencing of the songs should also follow like a a journey of sorts, and make sense. It's not just like, you know, mixed up in a bowl and we choose them at random.
Yeah, I've had this discussion with a few people. I mean, some people don't agree with me, but for me, an album design structure is pretty much like a movie. I mean, you imagine the Titanic if the boat sank halfway through and then somehow afterwards the boat is floating again. Like, it doesn't matter how good the movie is, doesn't matter how good each scene is. If it's not put in the right sequence, it just doesn't make any sense. And I feel
I
for
might watch
me,
that movie though.
you would want constant it would be a little bit like Family Guy with constant like flashbacks, like just
Yeah.
flashbacks, just constant flashbacks. So I felt like this album perhaps is one of the best when it comes to that. I think you guys really nailed that vibe, that flow, because it allowed the music to breathe differently, that makes sense to you. At least for me, from a listener
Yeah.
standpoint, where I'm coming from.
Thank you. Yeah, that's really great to hear. That's the goal, you know.
When you guys come to a new record, do you know more what you don't want out of the record than what you do want out of the record?
Ooh, that's a great question. Well, we don't want it to suck, first and foremost.
That's good. That's good.
You know, I think yeah, I think mostly we just are gearing towards what we do want. Because you don't know what you don't want until you've tried something and decide that it doesn't work, you know. I think our creative process is really open. Um, Even kind of once we've determined the overall style for a batch of songs, like I think we have like a particular ethos for each album that we kind of write around. But when we're working on stuff as a band, if someone has an idea, we always try it, no matter what it is. And you know, some of them work, and we incorporate it into the songs. Sometimes they don't work, but we don't ever just say no, no, that sucks. We're not going to try that. We always try it, and if it doesn't work, cool. But we don't know it until it's until we've at least given every idea and every person their fair share of attention.
This is obviously still a Pallbearer sounding album. It has that DNA, that doom DNA of the band is there. But I felt it was a lot more progressive than what I was expecting coming in. Where did that inspiration come from to push the sound of the band into a different sphere, if you will?
Well, we try to make each album its own unique experience, and so when we started writing these songs in 2019, they were written alongside the songs from Forgotten Days. And kind of the idea behind Forgotten Days was to hew as close to like the original idea of whatever initial idea without too much, you know, uh reimagining or rearranging. Like we wanted that all those songs to be raw, direct. We cut out a lot of the more florid elements of our sounds, more extended progressive sections, and tried to just cut down to the very meat, like the riff centric part of the band. And so, with a couple exceptions, obviously Silver Wings, long, typical kind of pallbearer structure. Caledonia was kind of experimental. But for the rest of most of the rest of the songs, they're very straightforward. And that was intentional. That was a challenge for us. Following Heartless, which was very technical, very meticulously arranged, and very, maximalist and dense. Um, so Forgotten Days was a response to that. Meanwhile, we were also writing the songs which ended up on this album concurrently with the Forgotten Days material, but it was so very, it's very different than the Day stuff in that it's more uh, subtle, it's more measured. There's very defined, or there's extended moments of silence. Um, there's a lot of room to breathe in these songs. Whereas, so if Forgotten Days is more of like a jackhammer or a steamroller that never really lets up, this is I don't know, some other construction. Probably not. That wasn't a very good metaphor, but I don't know where I'm going with
I
that.
was going to say
But
this was more like you're having a fine wine. You smell the wine. The other one is just a beer on a hot day.
yeah, there
You
you
just
go.
chug it. You
A
just chug.
warm beer on a hot day. It still gets you drunk, but could use a little ice. But yeah. So yeah, sure. Let's go with that.
Do you worry about when you're adding these changes, or when your creativity is taking you in these different directions? Do you worry about not veering too far off of what you feel, not what people expect your DNA to be, but what you feel your DNA is?
Not really, because our box, the box that we've created for ourselves is so huge. Um, I think as long as we feel like it's Pallbearer, then it's Pallbearer. Like it can be like I don't think we've figured out everything that we could do. We haven't tried everything. I sure hope not, at least. So I think there's just like an instinctual feeling that we know when it's right. And if it's not, then we don't use it or mess with it until it sounds right, but there's like a feeling, there's just a feeling that I will feel myself when I'm writing that I just know, like this works for the band. And there's, it's a, I don't know, there isn't really a system to it. It's just entirely like an instinctual thing. So yeah, I think that if it went too far outside, then I think that's more for the fans to decide if we're going too far in one direction. But as long as we feel the music like is satisfying to us and it still feels like Pallbearer to us, then it is.
This record had that really cool fuzzy guitar sound, not consistently, but it came in almost like little breadcrumbs where you get a little bit on this song, then it kind of disappears, and a song goes by where you don't hear, and then you pick it up again on another song. And I thought it was a really cool way of connecting the album and creating some sort of a red line throughout the record without necessarily pressing a really bold and thick red line across it. Was that also a little bit by instinct, or there was a little bit more thought process behind that guitar sound?
Well, that would be that's on the mixer Mario Quintero, which I think he's like, I think he deserves a lot of credit for how good the album sounds and just the sounds of the album. We had, you know, we recorded the guitars and everything under that we had we dialed in the sounds, and each guitar sound is a multi-mic recording as is typical, but each microphone sounds good on its own, and um, the blend of each microphone is what translates into the final result, what the listener hears. And so for each song, Mario ultimately was in control of the blend. So I think that those differences and similarities that come across in the different songs are down to Mario's like sense, his sensibilities and how he blended the guitars throughout the record. So we gave him hopefully some really good sounds to work with, and then he made them sound good.
Kudos to him. He did a phenomenal
Yeah,
job. Like
he's great, man.
I really love that aspect of the album because you never really get tired of the sound because it disappears, it comes back, it disappears, it comes back, but it in the back of your mind subconsciously, it's almost like it's always been there. You don't sometimes you don't even notice. And I think that's when it becomes really interesting from a listener standpoint is that things almost seem so natural to you that you don't even notice that they're there to begin with until you actually stop and start to analyze it a little bit deeper.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, Mario's so good. He's in the band Spotlights, and all of their records sound really good too. He mixes all them. Not sure what else he's done. I wish I should be more prepared, but he's really good at his job. And yeah, he was great to work with. And I think this is my favorite sounding of any of our albums. So I think he did a really fantastic job.
I agree with you on that. What about the vocals? Was this a challenging record vocally, or it falls in line with previous albums?
It was challenging, because I'm not used to singing quietly. That's not something that I mean, honestly, that's not something that I was ever really able to do that well. I've always been a guy who sings, with a lot of power. That's just the way that I sing, and that's the way I guess that my voice, that's what it wants to do. Um, and I've never been trained as a singer at all. It's all just from, trial and error, a lot of error at times. But, I've gotten better over the years, but mostly singing, soaring type of stuff. So, but I wanted to challenge myself, and I was interested in singing in a different way. And obviously the material calls for me to not be belting it out over, it would sound pretty weird over some of the parts of this album. So, I'd sung quietly on A Plea for Understanding, like the verses on that song on Heartless, but that was it. And so it was kind of a challenge. I had to find the kinds of tonalities that I liked. Like there's a million different ways to sing, it can make my voice sound different ways. So, and finding a new way of singing them, I had to decide, make some decisions that I hadn't really made in a long time, like how to express myself using my voice in a different way. Um, because the kind of techniques that I would use when singing in a typical pallbearer way to convey different like inflections to get different emotions across didn't necessarily apply to singing quietly. So I had to find new ways to get those, to translate the feelings of the lyrics into sound. So that was a challenge. Yeah.
When you were recording these songs, were you thinking about, hey, eventually some of these I'm going to have to perform live?
Oh yeah. Well, always. As time has gone on, I don't know if anybody notices, but there's less just consistently high songs, like where I've, compared to I mean, some of Heartless is really hard to sing. Really, the first three albums, being younger and also just, I don't know, I figured I was like gonna die any day, and I'm like, fuck, I'm not gonna live past 30. And now I'm 37. I'm about to be 37 tomorrow, so I'm like,
Happy
well,
early
shit, I'm gonna have.
birthday.
Oh, thank you. I was like, well, I'm gonna have to potentially be singing these songs at like 45 or 50, I'm like, let's still leave the high parts in there, but just sprinkle them out. Like, because I don't, I can sing high, but it gets training has made it easier. Experience has made it easier, just training myself through it through repetition and figuring out how to sustain my voice from show to show. Like those high parts are easier to sing than they used to be, but I'm not trying to make every show like an Olympic event for myself. So and also like I feel like when I'm not pushing to the very heights of my ability, I'm able to be more emotive and like be in the moment more instead of just focusing on hitting the note. Like I can, you know, translate the song better. I can sing the song better when it's in a more comfortable range. So for Forgotten Days and this album, I keep the melodies a little closer to my natural singing range, speaking range.
So when it comes down to putting a set list together, are you keeping all of these considerations in mind in order to give your voice the proper ebbs and flows to push you not just through one show, but obviously through a whole tour?
Oh, big time. Yeah. I try to pepper the more challenging songs throughout the set. Um, Usually put like Ghost, the Ghost I used to be, for example, we always play it. People always want to see it. Um, but almost that whole song is like, it's not like at the tip of my range, but it's high. That whole song is high. So usually don't want to start with that because I want to make sure I warm up backstage, but sometimes I don't get a chance to for whatever reason. So usually don't put that song as the first song. But then again, you also don't want to put really, really challenging songs at the very end of the set because I mean, if you're 3 weeks, a month into a tour, you might be having some kind of vocal fatigue. So there is like a very delicate, you know, process. But at the end of the day, it's like the album sequencing thing. It's the sets have to have a good ebb and flow too. So we're pretty conscious about our set sequencing because we want the energy to have ups and downs. Like don't make people fall asleep, but sprinkle in some up tempo songs into the set too. Yeah,
I like that. That was good. That was good.
it's still Pallbearer. So
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you guys are not Electric Callboy. I don't expect you guys to start like
no.
dancing and doing all of that crazy stuff. Speaking of set lists, when you're planning on hitting the road with this new record, so that fans can appreciate some of these songs in person.
We're leaving on June 5th, I believe, for North American tour. We're doing 2 weeks. Uh, and then No, we're doing 3 weeks, and we got 2 weeks off, and then we're doing another 3 weeks. So we're doing North America from like June till August. Um, and then we are doing Europe in August, or in, excuse me, in October and November. I think it's like over the course of a month. It's pretty much 1 month from right before Halloween till the end of November.
Now,
And
is this a North American tour that includes Canadian dates, or is one of those North American tours that only includes US?
no, actual North American. Yeah, there are Canadian shows.
All right, perfect. I gotta check that out because I gotta put it on my calendar. I definitely want to see you guys live, and I want to hear some of these new tracks live as well. Because man, your voice, the sound, aces. This is a it blew me away how good this record made me feel. And I went in like I wasn't a fan of Forgotten Days, so I went in like with really low expectations. I'm not gonna lie to you. And then I started
Sure.
listening to this album, and I was like, "What the hell did they do here?" Wow! I was like, "Wow!" Like every time I listened to the album, it's almost like I was listening to the album for the first time and discovering something new with it. It's just such a great sounding record, both musically and vocally. I honestly don't know what else to say about it besides giving it the praise that I feel like it deserves. And with that, I want to finish with my last question to you, which is, I feel like the band has such unique characteristics around them in terms of how you guys create your music, how you guys design the albums, even the artwork. How much of all of this is a representation of your very own personality?
I'd say, I mean, all of it on some level, or at least our creative sensibility. Yeah, you know, if you get, or if you're around any of us like at length, we're very like silly people, but like we take our art like very, very seriously. Um, so yeah, I mean, there's so much thought put into every single element of the band, like visually, every note, like every single thing is intentional. Um, so I mean, that is a reflection of part of our personality. Like I think, you know, on a personal basis, it, I hope it's not like listening Pallbearer to be around us, because it'd be pretty fucking depressing. But you know, that when it comes to like the actual decisions that go into the overall presentation and the end product, I guess, of everything, like the final piece, like yeah, it's all very considered by all four of us. We all have a lot to say about it. And it's the summation of the four of you know our tastes and our creative designs.
On that note, I want to thank you very much for your time. As soon as we finish this, I'm going to go check to see the dates. Hopefully, there's a Toronto date somewhere, and I get to see you
There is.
guys. There is.
Yeah,
Oh,
I think so.
all right. You made my day. So I'm going to show up there. I'll promise I'll behave myself, and I won't fall asleep. I promise that as well. I won't fall asleep. And looking forward to seeing you guys, and looking forward to hearing these new tracks live. I'm dying to see how they translate from the studio now into the live setting because they were phenomenal. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much, man. I really appreciate it, and I'm happy to hear that you enjoyed the album so much.
Oh, I did. I loved it. I can't get enough of it, to be honest with you.
That's
And
awesome.
I'm like I said, I'm really looking forward to seeing you guys. So all the best with the release, and all the best with the tour. And I'll see you guys in Toronto.
All right, man. See you there.
Take care, man. All the best.
Take care. Bye.